Good morning. What is great, good, and real? And welcome to day 24 of the Do You Rules live stream experience. And I have goosebumps and butterflies and hypeness because I want to feed you some dopamine and then get into what I believe is some advanced tactics in the self-improvement space that I don't know that anyone talks about, at least in my research and journey. And of course, I'm supposed to say that because I got to sell you something of influence, right? But before we do that, because I'm ready to ready today. I'm ready today. Let's do it. Ooh, it's Friday. It's Friday. And if you know me enough to know, or if you know me enough yet, then you know the weekends are not lounge. It's not lounge time for me. The weekends offer me extra time to work on me. It means I've closed another successful business week, family week, life week, and I'm loving life. I'm loving life. But let me calm down before I get way too hyped on the dopamine side and talk about adrenaline and motivation. Red book. Where are you, red book? I got some things written down in the red book today. You know, you think about this can motivate or inspire, right? That's what I have written down. Not for you to see it, and don't try to read that. Don't pause it and read it. Presuming you're not watching this live. That's secret information from the mind of Cliche Jeff. This one, two, three, four, five, 6.5 lines can get me through an hour. Possibly. I know I'm gonna go, I think I'm gonna go to at least 5 o'clock today. Chapstick. And then we talked about transitioning from the Poland Spring to the Kirkland. I wonder how you all feel about Costco and Kirkland. I remember growing up in a place where Costco was not available to me. And, well, that changed things. What time is it? Why don't you speak to me? Huh? Why don't you speak to me? I don't feel right when she doesn't speak to me. All right. OCD time. I got my son's phone charging here. You know, one of the little quirks I used to have was being told what to do. I don't like being micromanaged. And oh, being asked to do something that I'm clearly doing, it's like I know you see me doing this. Little quirk, little quirk as I get settled in. But my son asked me last night, "Can you please make sure you charge my phone?" So I said, "Haven't I been doing that?" He just kept repeating, "Make sure you charge my phone." I'm like, "Haven't I been doing that for you?" I have been for like the past, I don't know, year. Why he felt the need to tell me to do it slightly irritated me, but that's not why we're here today. It's day 24, man. It's day 24. And at this point, if you're paying attention to yourself, because it should be all about yourself, I think it's fair to start asking the question, which we'll talk about. Are you learning how you work yet? Are you learning how you work? Are you learning how you like to be treated? I think those are fair questions. If you're on a self improvement path and journey, excuse me for a second. All right. I visualized the start of this much different than the first 4 minutes and 51 seconds. But we're settling in. It's okay. It's okay. Not everything goes according to plan. Not everything comes out ideal. And sometimes you could be hyped and 5 minutes later it's gone. I'm not suggesting that it is. Don't judge me. But oh God. What else am I supposed to do at just a little under 4:30 in the morning? You go a little crazy sometimes. That's life. I'll accept it. Things that go on in your head, sometimes they're great. Sometimes you question, why is that in my head? It's a big thing. What is in your head? Are you learning how you work? Are you learning how you like to be treated? I feel like I want to say that might be some advanced tactics. Those might be some advanced tactics. And maybe I feel that way because it took me a while to fully appreciate what that could possibly mean. And I really want to talk about that. But I also wanted to talk about the other things I have noted here, which I believe are important before we talk about, are you learning how you work? Are you learning how you like to be treated? I wrote this down. I think it's important. 24 days in, right away, when you make this effort, let's be honest about this too. You should have like look, I'm not one to talk about I'm one really to talk about avoiding trophies and expectations and always looking to be highlighted. And I mean that also from an external, socially acceptable perspective. In that if you're looking for an applause, applaud yourself. Give yourself a pat on the back. Tell yourself you're doing a good job. Is there a part of that that is sort of you convincing yourself? Can you feel like you're lying sometimes? That's why we're going to get into how you work and how do you like to be treated. The reality is, if you're not accustomed to receiving a pat on the back from yourself, if you're not accustomed to giving yourself a round of applause, if you're not accustomed to talking yourself into positive behavior and affirmations, then it's not as if you don't want it or you won't go. I don't know logically. Okay, let's think of it like this. I think it's reasonable to say we all like to feel good about our lives. And in order for us to feel good about our lives, we have to feel good about ourselves. How are you ensuring you're feeling good about yourself? If this is a self-improvement effort, movement, and endeavor, and we're day 24 or day 2,463 or whatever into it, even if you're 2 minutes into it, even if you woke up today and decided today was a day, whatever, at some point, I believe as part of the baseline fundamentals, there's a reality to, I want to feel good about this. And for me, because I do believe you should feel good, the goodness should come from within, not just in God and spirituality and all the practices we discuss as far as internalization and how that works, but just the reality to what's in your head that you put there. If we're going to say and debate on we need to improve our lives and there's some fundamentals to work on that start with how we talk to ourselves, because how we talk to ourselves or how we think to ourselves, how we think to ourselves or how we feel to ourselves, which is really the inverted process of feeling, thought, and spoken word. And we know that we've come to the realization that where we are today and what we see in our lives, what we have already spoken is more our reality than anything. Then we got to change how we speak, which means we got to change how we think, which means we got to change how we feel. So in that way, yes, pat yourself on the back, give yourself a round of applause. If you just started, you're 24 days in or further. Every now and again, I caution you, and we talk about being careful not to look back because there's nothing back there for you. But also there's a reality to, hey, I got to be moving somewhere. Imagine putting in a lot of effort and not going anywhere. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants that. And I don't know how else to express that outside of, yeah, man, feel good about yourself. I don't think you should over affirm yourself. I think you should be careful how you affirm yourself and talk yourself into abundance. Absolutely. I don't know that you could do it any other way. I said it the other day in a reel I posted. Fuck, I'm cold today. I can make you rich right now simply by you deciding to change how you feel. I'm rich, I'm abundant, I'm prosperous. You got to repeat that many more times before you actually start to feel it. Because you can say whatever you want, but you can't G up God. God knows how you feel, and how you feel is really what is your energy source. That energy source is connected to God and universe. When you decide to change how you feel about your life and you can maintain that and sustain that over long periods of time. We talked yesterday about being a magnet, your energy is directly connected to source and creator and God, the way I feel, the way I describe it. But look it up anywhere you want to talk about manifestation, prayer, meditation, the law of attraction, any sort of truth around how you can build. It starts with how you feel, because then God go the way I describe it is God goes in search of himself. If I feel rich and I keep telling myself I'm rich and I've convinced myself I'm already rich, then everything that comes with affirming that I'm rich outside of my words will come to me. If you're patient, if you can open your eyes and realize what richness really means outside of the money. You want the money, get the money. I never try to pretend like I don't want the money. I talked regularly too, and as I'm learning, part of the virtuousness that is around stoicism, not that I'm a stoic or intending to be, but the philosophy of life, not that I'm a philosopher or pretending to be, at least not by label. I don't know what I label myself as, just a person who's trying to live through God and appreciate my essence of God and creator in me. Use whatever you want to define me. As my children would say, you can define me as egghead. Egg, the egg. And when I'm mad, my daughter, I can be the emo egg, the hard boiled egg. Anyway, I digress. God, I love myself, but I hate myself. I say it all the time. In any event, when you trigger that emotion and that energy in you, I'm a firm believer. Like, I wake up rich every day. And I have some pretty good, I've made some pretty good moves financially, but I'm not rich by definition of the 1%. I'm creeping, we're making progress, but we still got a long stretch to go. But that doesn't define me solely. That's not just it. I have many other reasons I'm rich. Change your energy, change your frequency, raise your vibration. It all comes to you. What I was getting at was pat ourselves on the back. We cheer for ourselves. We motivate ourselves. We inspire. Like you, sometimes I wonder when we start asking the question like, how do you like to be treated? What do you like to hear? What are the words you need to hear to inspire you, to motivate you, to give you that rush of life and energy to go, and not just go, but keep going, sustained. It's just like in business. If people launch businesses all the time. There's startups happening right now. There's small businesses, medium businesses, large businesses. A lot of the gap between where somebody starts and where somebody ends, or where somebody starts and where somebody continues to grow and expand, is what? Retention. I don't know that we talk a lot about getting new people, new subscribers, new business, but how do you retain? How do you retain? If you don't retain, like, people matter. If you don't retain the people in any business, you have no business. There's no business. So in that way, I'm gonna write that down. I might talk about that. I gotta probably phrase it in a way that sounds better. Because if I say it like this, I don't even know that I understand what it means fully. Self retainment. Self retainment. If I'm considering that I'm creating and establishing a new version of myself and I'm pushing towards self actualization and the best version of me, right? Living my best life, that's the cliche. I think reasonably and somewhat clearly we can identify. I talk about where you're standing today. You can see where you are today, and then you can project out into the future of where you want to be, all rich and lavish and happy, right? Your kingdom of whatever your kingdom is. The difficulty is not just in the steps. Like, we clearly know that there's steps and there's a path. There's no one who doesn't know that. That's what scares us. We don't want to walk the path. And sometimes we take a step or two or three or four, 24 days in. The question comes back to how do you retain that? How do you retain that? If you can't retain it and you can't retain yourself, you can't do the things required to keep you moving, then you won't go anywhere. Then you won't go anywhere. Is that not logical? Is that not reasonable? That we can't stop moving. So if we can't stop moving, how do we keep ourselves moving? That, a shot of adrenaline and dopamine is not going to suffice for more than whatever it suffices for. Because this is the cliche. I'm cliche Jeff. You're not going to wake up every day wanting to. I still today. Come on, man. I've been waking up. I've been waking up now 3:30 for just about 24 days. I've been doing 4 o'clock for about 4 years. It's not a question of convincing myself. How do I retain that level of what we would call discipline? That's retainment. What do I need to do to ensure that what I said I would do, which is just repeating. We talk about it's a repeatable process, habits, rhythms, and patterns. How do I contain? How do I sustain that? Self sustainment, self retainment. I got to retain what it is about me that keeps me moving forward. I got to pat myself in the back. I got to look myself in the mirror. I got to write down how I feel. I gotta do whatever it is I gotta do to figure out how I like to be treated, and then keep doing that. Right. Before I get into a little more detail, there, time check 4:40. It is 4:40. I don't know who's in the chat. If anybody's in the chat, anybody comes to the chat. It's one of the things I got to figure out about OBS. I might take some time tomorrow to figure that out. Set a timer for 5 a.m. That's another good thing I like about the weekends is there's a level of self-improvement. The least appealing part about self-improvement, in my estimation, is to do the research, to take the time to do the research, make little twinks. But those pivots are also vital, right? Because it gets us to a place where we want to be. But that can be boring and mundane. And that's a level of deep work, which can feel awfully hard to stay in that rhythm. Talk about sustainment, retainment. How do I not just get myself into deep work, but stay there? How long do I want to apply to it? There's a level of stress on the brain that comes with that, the stress on your emotion that when you sit down and try to learn and figure things out, I get it. And then talk about rhythms and patterns. If you're not used to, deep work, and you're like, oh, I'm gonna put in. I talked about it. I don't know how many episodes ago. There's almost no benefit in going to the gym for 11 and a half hours and working out every muscle on your body and then doing nothing for a month. You're better off doing 10 to 15 minutes a day every day for 30 days. It's just the reality. So in that way, if you decide to do some deep work, you're better off starting with 30 minutes than to try to put in. I think what they say is you shouldn't be sitting in longer than 3 hours, and then every half hour take at least a 5-minute break. I learned also when you go too hard in a direction to start, thinking you're gonna get it all back, you can't get it all back. I might have said that before at some point too. You can't get it all back in one day. So trying to overexert yourself for an extended period is only going to hurt yourself. Fear comfort as much as you do the pain. I wrote that down. Oh, man, how are you feeling? I feel blessed. Don't misconstrue me trying to continue to get comfortable and all these sinuses that are starting to come to my forefront and irritate me for me not feeling blessed. That's just what God gave me today. I'm going to work through it. Why? Because I fear comfort as much as I do the pain. So in that way, when you start to measure some of the changes of what's occurring, and you start to build up where you're at, coming on the mic this early, still relatively new enough for me, where the way I wake up at 4 o'clock, and it's very easy to convince myself, sustain, and retain that lifestyle because I've been doing it for so long. This is still new enough to where I start to question, should I do it? I still go through that. Should I click record? Should I take a day? Should I not do it? What am I gonna say? What am I gonna mean? All this stuff. And it's important and it's relevant. But in the same way, it isn't. I said I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. If it comes out great, great. If it doesn't, great. But also in the same way, you have to reflect. You have to we have to ensure we're making pivots and drive towards the success we see because we optimize. As part of it too. We got to optimize the experience. So I don't want to get into a rhythm and a pattern of like if you're lifting weights and you're doing it in a rhythm and pattern with the wrong form, you hurt yourself, right? Same thing with your habits. If you repeat habits that aren't fruitful, you wind up hurting yourself. It becomes a detriment. But fearing the pain more than or fearing comfort as much as you fear the pain is like, okay, I'm not feeling the greatest. Everything is irritating me. My hands are cold. My feet are cold, right? Now I hate the fact that I have a half finished basement, not a full basement. All these things start to run through your head. And I start thinking about, well, when my timer does go off, I gotta go outside. And not that I have to, I get to. That's one of those things. I don't get to, I have to. Well, I don't have to, I get to. But I'm gonna be outside. It's cold. It's been really, really, really cold. I could just go back upstairs in my bed. Is there anything wrong with that? Not necessarily, but it's comfortable. My point being, how I reason with myself and get myself to click record and get myself to write it down and get myself to push through it is to be absolutely terrified of the alternative, which is we talk about polarities. I don't want to be comfortable. I'm scared to death of comfort. I had to learn, and that's what I want to share too. Like, what is it about the self improvement process that I think is so valuable? Well, what keeps you stuck and stagnant and in stasis, what you're sustaining today, what is retaining you in your life today, could possibly be driven around comfort. And there's fear to moving away from comfort because then you get into discomfort. If you're not drifting into comfort, then where you at, right? So if you're not comfortable, you're uncomfortable. Now, there's a standard motivation and a cliche around the uncomfortable is where you grow. But I assure you, if you do something long enough that's uncomfortable, guess what eventually happens? You become comfortable with it. You become comfortable with it. You're gonna be uncomfortable with a newer version of you until you get comfortable doing it. And then in that same way, when you start to acknowledge, oh, this is easy for me now, it's easy for me now, you got to make yourself uncomfortable again. And it doesn't happen until you start to fear the comfort more than you do the pain of growth. Because really, I think I was listening to Ray Lewis yesterday. He said greatness is continued growth. Greatness is continued growth, right? It's Sunday on top of Monday, on top of Tuesday, on top of Wednesday, on top of Thursday, on top of Friday, on top of Saturday, on top of Sunday. You do it all over again. That's what it is. And in that way, you could drive yourself crazy. I also wrote down if we're going to go across the spectrum of fear being comfortable so that you can be and embrace discomfort, you have to fear not doing it as much as doing it. Fear not trying as much as trying. Or fear trying. I think I said it right. The point being, the point being, if you can muster the courage to do something, if you can muster the courage for change, and you're 24 days in, you start to get to a point where, as hard as it is, as hard as it is to get up at 4 o'clock or 3:30 or 2 or 5, whatever it is, when you do it enough, there is somewhat of and I don't know what this. I guess this was this would be part of the neuroscience around neurons that wire together, fire together, or fire together, wire together, which ultimately means your habits and your patterns. You will reach a point where you question, and if I don't do it, I know how it's going to feel. If I don't get up, if I don't record, I'm going to hate myself later. And you battle yeah, but if I just ease into this comfort, if I don't try today, I won't go through that pain. But you will feel pain later if you don't do it. That's part of the beauty of building new rhythms and habits and patterns. Eventually, you will find that there is a discomfort by not choosing discomfort. You get what I'm saying? There is pain in not choosing the pain. It's why I have to talk myself through rest days. Think about that. That I could have been one of the most laziest, self centered, over self indulgent. I guess you could say I was a borderline narcissist at some point. My wife still questions or she'll we'll debate my level of narcissism. I love myself to death though, so I got to walk that line. I got to walk that line. But if I can tell you that I routinely drank, I routinely stayed up doing things that were not conducive to personal self improvement and growth. I was not a morning person. I was not self motivated. I was a lot of things you didn't want to be. And now I'm the way I was the antithesis of this today, I was previously. That I've learned to transition from what used to keep me down to what keeps me moving forward. It can happen. It's just a matter of will you be able to develop the habits, the rhythms, and the patterns? Will you be able to implement what works for you in the framework? We talked about, 24 days in, I've given you everything I think I know as far as establishing a path. It's just a matter now of are you going to carve it for yourself? Are you going to carve it for yourself? Are you going to fear comfort as much as you do the pain? That's a question you have to ask yourself. And that's a question you have to answer to yourself, right? Another thing I wrote down here is as far as comfort, and I use this as a way to keep myself moving forward. Words are important, right? I feel like I'm gonna sneeze. Come out. I hate that feeling. Now, because I focused on my sneeze, I got to go back to what I was saying in my head. Okay, okay. I think this part of the journey is important. The old me, the new me, it's still you. In that there is no discarding. Really, memory is a powerful thing. You're gonna always remember who you were. That part of it hurts because as you remember who you want to be, because that's also remembrance. Think about what I just said. And as you move towards this new you, it's very easy to get uncomfortable with the old you. But you need the old you, to keep the new you moving. But in that same way, as far as it being comfortable, the old you is always there for you. And that the old you, because it's so well established in all its rhythms, patterns, and habits and routines and emotional comfort, you can always default right back in there. I'm gonna sneeze. Hold on. Uh, I hope I'm not getting sick. Starting to feel like I'm getting sick. Maybe because I sound like I'm sick. Yeah, definitely feeling it. All right. The old you will always be there for you. That should make you comfortable. Look, if it really gets that hard and really gets that difficult for you, excuse me again, I'm so sorry. All right. Once again, I apologize. Whew, that was static. Not the experience I was hoping to give you, but we pushed through. So the old you is certainly available for you at any time. You can call on that person whenever. And one of the things I've learned is that, matter of fact, I think this is, I guess an analogy would be the word. So my son came to me last night, just last night. I was brushing my teeth. He comes in the bathroom. He's like, "Yo, I need help with my homework. I need a pen. Give me a pen and some paper." So I said, I got you. Just brushing my teeth. So he's standing there and he says, "Yo, do you meditate at night?" So I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "You used to meditate every night. I haven't seen you meditate at night in a while." So I said, "I haven't stopped," and I got a little uncomfortable because meditation is big to me. And immediately, emotionally, it hurt me to think that I somehow thought he thinks I quit meditating, and I don't want him to think that. I hate to. I don't like to show him any level of quitting because I'm very conscious of that. I don't. I've quit a lot of things, and I don't ever want to quit again. And so, because I never want to quit again, I get insecure. I guess would be the word when the idea of quitting is presented to me. So I have to, I have to rationalize that within myself, and I have to become emotionally stable because it makes me unstable to think that I'm quitting. So I said, I haven't stopped meditating. He said, no, that's not what I asked. What I asked is, I don't see you meditating at night anymore. Do you still meditate at night? So I said, at night, specifically in my corner, the way that you would meditate, no, no. And he said, oh, okay. And forget the logistics as to and the rationale behind why he asked that. That's not the point I'm trying to drive. I'm even getting uncomfortable thinking about the discomfort that I felt that he identified this. But here's the truth. At one point, for probably about 2 years straight, I meditated every day at night. Every day at night. Now, I still wake up and pray and meditate first thing in the morning. I haven't stopped that at all. There goes me defending myself again. Why do we do this as people? Why do we feel the need to? But this is also me. See, this is also me making sure I know and I'm rationalizing with myself. I pray and I meditate in the morning, and I usually do one now in the afternoon. And one of the reasons I did that and made that adjustment is because I knew I stopped at night. One of the reasons I stopped at night is because I gave that hour that I was using to pray, meditate, and stretch to my son or to my daughter or to my wife or to the family. I give it more family time. Now, point being, back to comfort. The old you, the routine that you built is new. You could kill it at any time and it goes away like that. Like, if they tell you the science says between 2 to 3 days, if you wake up at the same time every day, your circadian rhythm changes and you start waking up before the alarm clock. I don't know what the science says as far as stopping a habit that you've went towards that was new, that was think about it. That was a big thing to me. I love doing it. But in the same way, I stopped it. I didn't even think about it. I stopped thinking about it. I stopped concentrating on it. It stopped taking a bandwidth. I got very comfortable no longer doing it. Now I switched and I pivoted, so there's reason and logic to it. Maybe that helps as I'm thinking about it. But also, I don't think about it in that if I ever want to stop, I can. I'll say it like this: I believe I could very easily stop waking up at 3:30, 4 o'clock, like I used to. I can go back to waking up 7 o'clock. Easy. Starting tomorrow. I'll just sleep until I can't sleep no more. I could do that whenever I want. That old part of my system is there for me whenever I want. So I offer you that realization. We're pushing up on time here. We got about 75 seconds. I'm not going to get into my main point, I don't think. I'll save it for tomorrow. Tomorrow we're going to reflect and talk about learning to celebrate ourselves. Let me write that down tomorrow. Tomorrow. But think about that as you look to sustain and retain that the old you is always there, dog. It's never going to go away. It's never not going to be available. Comfort. Comfort is always there. You can always drift back into who you used to be because who you used to be is always going to be who you are and that it's a part of you. You got to accept that. You can't just be like, "Oh, I'm rich and abundant and great. I never used to be poor." How do you know you're rich? I'm healthy and strong and powerful because you used to be unhealthy and weak. How would you know? How would you know otherwise? You wouldn't. So that old you, as we talk about the pain of comfort versus the pain of pain and drifting towards one or the other, comfort's easy. Comfort's easy. Comfort will always be there for you, and it can always be your default at any time. It'll go away. So take that for what it's worth. We got about 20 seconds here, so I'm going to get into my outro. I don't know why I feel the need to apologize again for this not going exactly how I want it. And whatever's happening is happening. I'll be on tomorrow no matter what, even if it's just to say hello. Close your week strong. If this is how you close the week, your work week, your life week, timer went off. As always, change your mind, change your life. I am who I say I am. Do you and stay rich.